Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cup Interviews. My name is Jillian Robinson. I am your associate producer here with Cup of Hemlock. And today I have a very special guest here, a dear friend and past theater student colleague of mine, and actively just making his mark all over our industry today, George Alevizos. How are you doing today, George?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. I'm so glad we are in a space chatting. It's been a while since we've caught up. We've run into each other quite a few times
You know,
since we graduated. George graduated the year below me in the theater program. We were a part of University of Toronto and Sheridan's Theater and Drama Studies program. Great. So, George, first we're going to kick off with our usual icebreaker. What is in your cup today?
well, I am very much an old man. I wanted to try. I love sweet vermouth,
Oh,
and I have that in my cup today.
wow, it's straight up sweet vermouth.
I love it.
Okay, I
If
love that for you.
if you make it with a twist of lemon,
Mm,
oh my god, it's phenomenal.
okay, writing it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Stay tuned, viewers, to an episode down the line of me trying out George's fantastic drink. Lovely. Well, I'm drinking out of our cup today, and I'm having my staple cinnamon black coffee.
Ooh,
Just a little energizer, a little bit of spice, and everything nice, to start
I
us off.
love that. I love that.
Great. What an eclectic drink selection we have today. Love it, love
I
it.
know, right?
Great. Okay, so George, tell us about yourself. Let's start from wherever you want to start. How did you get into theater?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Toronto. I've been here my entire life. I grew up in Etobicoke, so in the west end of Toronto. And how did I get into theater? So basically, like growing up, I was a part of the drama club um, in my elementary school, and I would be a part of every musical that we've ever done. And I fell in love with it from the minute I started doing choir, and we would be a part of the ensemble for every musical before you could audition for them. And I was a part of so many great shows and whatnot, and it was great. And then I remembered in grade six, I auditioned for our school musical of Annie, and I got the role of Daddy Warbucks in my first year of auditioning, which I really enjoyed. And then from that moment on, I did a show every year up until grade eight. And then in grade eight, I wanted to audition for an arts high school, but the one in my area, unfortunately, was not wheelchair accessible, so I couldn't audition for it. So I ended up going to an academic high school, but I did take drama all throughout, and I was a part of their drama club. I did a show every year. Um, and I remembered in grade 11, I was not too sure about what I wanted to do for a career. And I went up to my drama teacher and he was like, no, you know what you want to do. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you want to be an actor. And I'm like, well, I never really thought of it like that, but yeah, maybe I do. And then that was when I auditioned for every theater program on the planet. And then I got into the one I wanted, and there you go.
Nice. Isn't that
Yeah.
the greatest when you have those people that just kind of come out of nowhere and are just kind of smack you in the face with what you didn't know you already knew? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was really funny because I remembered I auditioned for our play, the annual play that they do in the school every year, in grade nine. And usually in grade nine, they don't cast a grade nine to be in the show, because they're made up of all grade 12 students for the most part. And I actually got cast in the show in grade nine, and he believed in me. I don't know. It was weird. He was like a great role model growing up. He believed in my ability and my talent and being 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 a force to be reckoned with when it came to the industry and fighting for what was right and whatnot. And he was the one that really kind of, you know, drove me into the career path that I'm at now. And I'm really grateful for that because he really believed in me, my drama teacher. And I'm internally grateful for him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Love that. Love that story.
yeah.
Um, so yes, so you are in the career path that your drama teacher has lovingly helped you realize, and you are just making your way all over the map. So we're gonna get into each nook and cranny, but to start, to address the currently as we're filming this kind of locked down lower stage of the pandemic rung that we are currently finding ourselves in. A silver lining out of that, though, is a lot of folks have been doing some digital work or some projects here and there with rapid testing. It's lovely that we can do some in-person things safely. And I know you have been up to quite a bit. So what is some of the digital work that you've been up to or pandemic projects? Some that I know that I can name that I would love you to speak on is Drayton's new digital streaming series, Backstage Pass. And you were a part of the Everybody production of Cell Block Tango Reimagined. So, floor is yours, but I would love you to highlight those two projects.
Yeah, definitely. Well, during the entire pandemic, I've been very active in my advocacy work at the start of it. So I've been a part of like multiple different talks with like the Empire Club of Canada and TIFF. I did a panel with them, and I was really working on working on public speaking and making sure that my message can come across to multiple people. But then in terms of work, I've been very grateful that even though it's been very hard at some parts of the pandemic, I've been grateful to at least be able to work a little bit. And I know that there are a lot of actors that are still very much unemployed or not working, or I'm very much aware of how privileged I am to be able to do even a couple of jobs throughout the pandemic. But um, my first major job that I did for acting was in the summertime. I got to do a production of Towards Rebirth with Shakespeare in the Rough. And that was a devised piece of theater. So we actually got to write everything and perform it, and each group got put into a group that had to create an act of the play, and we were three people per group, and it followed the theme of rupture into resilience into rebirth,
Wow.
and it was had to do like with like figuring out how to like add Shakespearean themes and whatever into it, but also your own writing and stuff that you wanted to highlight with how you were feeling in those stages of development.
Yeah.
And I got to be a part of Rupture, which was a lot of fun. And that show was really special and dear to my heart because it was the first time that my writing was highlighted in a professional production, and people actually got to witness my writing a little bit with two other incredible people in my group. Actually, three, because one of my group members, he had a health thing they had to deal with. And so we actually had an understudy a couple days before opening.
Right.
And then we had to like have him for the majority of the show, and then my other cast member came back, and then he took over. But I'm very impressed with the understudy, how quickly he memorized everything because it was all original writing, and he did it all within like 2 days of opening a show. Uh,
Understudies and swings. I swear, we stand understudies and swings. They are the
oh
real heroes.
Oh my god. Anyway, and it was really cool because our piece of uh theater that we created was it had to do with we were three different we were called Molly 1, 2, and 3. And the reason for that was because people kept calling us Molly in the office. We were like a in a mail room, and we were like male people. We were never getting promoted into like a higher position, and we were kind of getting tired of the world that we were living in. And we were kind of very robotic at the beginning and very repetitive. And then it turned out that we were kind of trying to break away from that. And eventually it, we kind of like took off the layer of our clothing that kind of witnessed our true self. And that was like our rupture of like getting out of the moment that we're like getting out of the moment that we're feeling like bogged down with life and whatnot, and trying to move forward in our life. And then that was when resilience came in, and then they started their piece of theater. So it was really quite the show. Um, and
And
then
did this happen summer of 2020 or summer of 2021?
summer of 2021.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think in the summer of 2020 there was really a lot.
There was much. True.
Yeah, live theater happening, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. But in 2021, that was the first time they started doing outdoor theater.
Yeah,
People were really starting to get into live theater again, which felt great. It felt great to even have like a live audience. Like I haven't had that in a very long time, because the last time I was performing on stage was when we went into a lockdown. And that was when I was working with Drayden for their a few good men, which was a really good show too. But anyway, so I got to work on that, and then the fall kind of just started to happen with more work. I auditioned for my first ever professional musical theater gig, and I ended up getting it, which I'm really happy about. And that was with everybody on stage, and it was being directed by Sasha Dennis, who's in Come From Away, and she was phenomenal. And we got to do the Cell Block Tango, but it was reimagined, meaning that the writer of the Cell Block Tango Reimagined was Matt Murray, who created Grow for the Grand Theater, and he is a writer and very well known in that. And what he did was he rewrote every verse of the Cell Block Tango to match with our story of what we wanted to show to the world, about different barriers that we're facing, different things that we feel about the industry as a whole, and things that we would want to change. And I was one of the 6 people who were part of that. So I actually got to work with even Kyle Brown, who's in Come From Away too. And he was in the Cell Block Tango Reimagined with me. But it was incredible because we got to do a cast recording of it, and actually recorded that. And then we filmed it as like a music video. And I think it will be released relatively in the near future. I will keep you updated on that.
Yes, and we will post all over our pages. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to do a dance callback, and that was a lot of fun. I've never done one before, and they were really impressed with my movement. And I had a lot of very complex choreography that I had to keep up with. But it was a lot of fun. It's so funny too, because right before I got the job, I remembered when I was performing in Rough, I was telling the director, I was like, yeah, one day I would love to be in a 1-person show for the Cell Block Tango. And they're like, maybe that would happen one day. And then I ended up getting it.
Oh, that's so great.
I know. And I'm like, I love Chicago and everything about that. And doing the Cell Block Tango was like the most iconic song in that entire show. And I really enjoyed it. And so we got to film that. There was a lot of choreography. We had to mouth everything that we recorded. We weren't allowed to sing on camera or anything like that because of COVID. So we pre-recorded everything, and then we had to like make sure we matched everything when we were performing on camera,
Wow.
which was really hard.
Yep.
On top of remembering choreography and
Yes.
everything like that.
And speaking of choreography, it was Greg Carruthers' choreography, right?
Correct.
Which just to kind of slide in here too, Sasha Dennis directed me in Legally Blonde at Hart House, and Greg Carruthers was also the choreography for that show. And I can attest, Greg's choreography is difficult. It's so fun and amazing when you, but he makes you work. So yes. Okay.
Yeah, he really made everybody work, and but it was a lot of fun, lot of fun. And when you got the choreography down packed, it looked incredible.
Always, yeah.
You know, so I got to do that, and then literally in that same week, I got an email from my agent about Drayden, and that they wanted me to be a part of their new Backstage Pass digital show. And that one is, I think they did it during 2020, but it was a much smaller scale of it.
Right.
But what they did for 2021 is they invited 40 artists that have worked for the company to come back and have an interview with the artistic director, Alex, for Drayden, and then also perform a song or a monologue or a scene, whatever the artist wants to do.
Right.
And they filmed it. And it's all going to be a part of like, I think from January, I think like next week they're starting, and then it's going to go until April 3rd.
Right.
And every week there will be another episode that people can buy, which is supporting the theater company. In a time where they thought that they were going to go back to in-person theater, and now they're not. So hopefully, probably by the summertime, I'm hoping that people will. I'm hoping that Omicron will be the last really major variant, and hopefully we can, get back to more of a normal life in terms of like getting back to work, because it's unfortunate. Like we're all at the beginning of our careers, and we're not even able to do a lot right now because of the fact that all of the veteran actors are all available at the moment and are auditioning for roles that we're auditioning for, especially if you're doing a union gig, and they're a lot more competitive now.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I feel that too. Especially like there's when you graduated, when I graduated, there's definitely a tiny year span where it's like we were just sort of launching and maybe getting exponential traffic in the right direction of the career, and then the pandemic hit. So it is kind of like this odd limbo, semi-professional waters to tread, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it was really hard because my agent brought up a really good point that I'm very grateful that I became union very quickly out of the gate, but becoming union very quickly also has a negative thing to it too, because you're now into the world of only union work, which means that if you don't have the stuff on your resume to kind of back you up, it can be really hard for you to get a job within the union world. And he was like, you're young and you're starting out, so it's going to be harder because you're going up against people who have been in the industry for over 35 years. Fair. Which I'm like, fair, like I get that, right? Like the amount of animation, like voiceover stuff that I've gone out for, that people like Sarah Jessica Parker was auditioning for the same role as me, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
cool. Love that. So it can be really difficult to stay motivated when it's hard when you think that you're starting to reopen and things will get back, and then we go back into a lockdown. And I think that going forward, because being a part of so many different things that I've done with like my advocacy work and stuff, I think that there needs to be more help from the government to help with like different jobs to have rapid testing and things in place so that we can actually go back, because I think
Sure.
that it's not fair for our industry to always be shut down when other people are going back to work.
Yeah.
So I think that there needs to come a point where live theater really needs to come back, because film and TV has been really going on for
Yep.
the entire pandemic, and live theater, which a lot of people only like doing that,
Mhm.
they're not doing it right now, which is really unfortunate.
Well, and you can tell people are so hungry for live theater right now because we've all been sort of, you know, not forced isn't really the word I want to use, but like forced into you like watching the fifth series of something on Netflix. Like it's like we've only have the digitized at our fingertips the last couple years, and I myself have had like a beautiful, grateful opportunity of doing live theater during all this as well. And you can just feel it from the audiences. Like they are hungry to watch art in live, like breathing spaces with other people. And it's something different. And it's something to do with your families, perhaps. And yeah, so I think there's going to be a big resurgence, hopefully, of live theater. And again, in a way, I guess that would be a silver lining too, because the common trope of the live theater is a dying art form, right? That unfortunate like title that was looming over, but now that we've not had the opportunity to see it, I'm hoping that there's a resurgence of it becoming alive again. And perhaps maybe not this summer in venues, but I mean the outdoor theater thing was lovely to attend last summer. And stuff like TYA and Shakespeare and pretty much like any genre can be adapted or changed outdoors. So hopefully, if we are outdoors again in the summer, hopefully we're not, but if we are only outdoors, I hope it expands to more projects, like there's more outdoor things happening.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. It was a lot of fun doing outdoor theater. It can be really hard with the weather on occasion, because we had a very hot summer, especially in August. It was really hot, and there were days that we would do a three p.m. performance, and it would be like 48 with the humidity out there, and it would be really hard to perform. But it's really cool doing outdoor theater. It's um, a very different art form, because you project in ways that you've never projected before. And I had to perform with a mask on,
Hey.
which I've never done before, and that was a new thing for everyone, because we had to have our mask on performing, and on top of like just the amount that you have to project, you also don't have the emotional view.
Mm.
Like people can't see what you're feeling truly
Right.
with a mask on. It can be very difficult, so you have to do more with your eyes.
Right.
And it was a weird thing to get used to, because I feel like we were performing, but we weren't, in a way, because it was so like different from what I'm used to doing before the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, the amount of pivots and switches and different hats that we've all kind of had to wear throughout all of this. I mean, again, I keep silver lining us, but I just hope that if anything, it just makes us stronger overall performers in everything we do.
Yeah.
Um, so speaking of strong overall performers, I'm going to pivot us to another strong paved pathway you have created for yourself. We're going to stay in the digitized art realm and we will pivot to your experience on camera. So, post graduation, you have had the opportunity to be in the show Star Trek Discovery. And you've also been in some Hallmark commercials, again, just to name a few of your cinematic experiences. So, what has been your experience in film so far? So, pivoting us a little bit away with theater,
Yeah.
and how has fleshing out like that side of your career been different than theater?
Well, very different. You know, coming from a theater background, when you start acting on camera, it can be very, very different, because you're not Well, first off, when you film, you're not filming in chronological order. You're filming for whatever they need to film for that day. So you might be filming a very emotional scene one day, and then the next day you're barely doing anything. So that can be a little bit different. Even within the day, you're not actually filming in chronological order. It's a very different art form because, on camera, I'm told to tone it down with my vocal ability sometimes because you're going from a very you're going from a lot of training of like talk more, talk louder, be more eloquent, this and that, and blah 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 blah. And then you go on camera and they're like, you don't have to try so hard. You have the microphone right there. And it's a very different art form. But I do enjoy on camera acting. I find it to be um a very nuanced way of acting, which I find really cool to try to attempt. And I've thankfully I've been able to do a little bit of it. But when I graduated in 2019, wow, that seems like so long ago. If you think about it. But I literally a week after I left UTM, I booked my first ever ACTRA commercial, which I'm like, okay, what? Like literally a week after. Like I'm not even shitting you right now.
Yes.
And yeah. And it was for Holland Blue Review, the hospital in Toronto. And it was a really fun commercial because I was one of the only actors in the commercial and I was auditioning for 12 different commercials in the commercial, and I got to play different parts and it was a lot of fun. But right after I did that gig, then I got contacted by ACTRA to be a part of an audit, which I know nothing about the union at this point. And it was really funny because I got to do the different audits for the different casting houses in Toronto to make sure that they're accessible for people like me, which a lot of them did not do very well on, but that will be a different story for a different day. But it was a good way to talk to them and try to start the conversation around, being more accessible to more people. And after doing the audit, then I booked another commercial at the end of the summer, and then I became a full ACTRA member. And I'm like, okay, great. And that was for Scotiabank. That was a lot of fun because I had a print portion of my commercial where all of my photos ended up on the subway at one point, and I remembered walking on the subway one day, and I'm like, oh, that is literally me.
Good morning, me.
Good morning, Toronto. And it was like an entire train of my different photos for Scotiabank. Like they bought like an entire train. It was weird. Anyway,
everyone on the train is like, okay, they now have the actor also advertising in the train that is already plastered with his face.
Like literally, like it was really funny. Anyway, so I did that. And then I went away on a vacation, which I really need one again. And I went to Barbados with my mom. And I remembered when I was on the trip, I got an audition from my agent being like, hey, you have a self tape for a guest starring role on Hudson and Rex. And I'm like, pardon me? I'm like, okay, cool. I'm on vacation. Can I do it when I get back? And he's like, sure, no problem. Have it done by the end of the week or whatever. I go back. I go with my coach. I do the audition. I get a call back. I'm like, okay. So I get to meet the casting director, and I read with her, like not even like a reader. I read with her, and did that. It was a lot of fun. And then literally 3 days after, I get a call from my agent being like, well, you're going to Newfoundland. I'm like, pardon me? He was like, you booked the role. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, great. So I got to be, for my first ever television credit, I got to be a guest star on a TV show.
Yes.
And it was a lot of fun. that really started to get the ball rolling. And then I started doing a lot more commercial work after that. Then I booked A Few Good Men. I was doing that for a little bit, but then we went into a lockdown. And then for a good year, there was not a lot going on. And then I started to audition more for television and film. I auditioned for a film with Mila Kunis in it. And that was a lot of fun. They loved my audition tape, but they wanted to go with an older actor for the role. And then I started doing more commercial work again. And then I now I'm a part of the union for their council. I went. I did. Well, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, and that was basically my trajectory from when I graduated to now.
Love it. Oh my gosh, that's so like you're on vacation, you book the role to basically like bring you to a destination. So like another vacation and booking, like that's wow. Like what a opportunity knocks and just taking it. Yes. I love that. Again, it's been a while since you and I have caught up too, so I don't even know a lot of these intricacies just as pals, and I love just hearing and reliving it again. It is so exciting, and just to kind of go back, like during the pandemic, and you were saying like, there's you were so grateful to get some of these projects, and I just want to talk about it too, like how when you think back on it's like every little installment of the career path like matters, and if anything, like it's like you don't want to take anything ever for granted again, because like it's sometimes stuff you will be in a lull, or something will be stale because they want to go with someone else, and it's just thinking back on the opportunities and really cherishing those moments. Yeah, it's just I'm living vicariously through those little moments for you. Great. So yeah, so I do want to hear about you talking about Union ACTRA, but just before we kind of veer too far away from the stage, I want to kind of bring us back. You have said post theater school, you had the opportunity of doing like a lot of equity things, and part of that you've already mentioned. You have worked as an actor for esteemed companies like Drayton, like Shakespeare in the Rough. So what was it like to kind of like right out of theater school jump into that pool of, and I mean, some of it may not have been right directly after theater school, but like to jump right into the pool of sort of like that tier of the industry, and to be able to do quite the range of work, because Drayton, for viewers or listeners who don't know, like they do musicals, they do plays, they have a wide range of material. And then Shakespeare in the Rough is more Shakespearean, Dubai. So you really are kind of spreading out your artistic tentacles in every pool possible. So, like, what have you gained, pandemic aside, just as like a person, as an actor, by being a part of these companies? What have you gained and learned?
Yeah. My God, I like everything. No, I remembered in my first ever equity gig that I booked was literally right before fourth year. But I didn't join the union at that point. I did a workshop reading with Cahoots Theatre in Toronto. And that was really cool because I was meeting people that I have never met before that are very well known in the theater world, doing a workshop reading for a company that is well known. And then I remembered after I graduated, um, my first ever major equity gig was with Lemon Tree Creations in Toronto. They had a one night show for the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, I believe. It was a big show about celebrating the 50th year of decriminalizing homosexuality in Canada, in the country. And there was a bunch of different playwrights that created like a little play for that show. and I got to be a lead in one of them, and it was literally me on stage, uh, and it had to do with the guy in a wheelchair, who was gay in Newfoundland, and it was really cool because I got to literally memorize a 7-page monologue in under a week. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun, and we had a sold out crowd. And at that point, I did join Equity because I was already a full actor member, and then you could join Equity if you wanted to as like a reciprocal agreement. So I did that, and then man, when I booked Drayden, um, that actually kind of shocked me. I won't lie. I remembered I did their general audition in mid January of 2020. Um, and then literally 2 days after, I got a call from David Connolly to be like, "Hey, we want you to be in A Few Good Men." And I'm like, "Pardon me?" Like, what? And then he was like, "We're offering you 2 roles to be in A Few Good Men." And I was like, "Okay, great." Like, yeah, he was like, "Do you want to do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to do it. What are you talking about? Do I want to do it?" Like, yeah, I do. Um, and I got to be directed by Marty Meriden, who is the old artistic director of Stratford. And she was the old artistic director of the National Arts Center in Ottawa. She's done every role imaginable at Stratford. She's a phenomenal person and director. And I actually got to be directed by her. And then I'm acting on stage with Benedict Campbell and like some like huge, huge people in theater. And I remembered at the beginning, I felt a little bit of imposter syndrome where I'm like, I don't belong here. But then I realized that like, no, they wanted me here. So, like I need to like put that aside for now and do the work. And it ended up being a really cool thing because I was a part of a commercial theater company that I've never been a part of. Very different with how they do things in comparison to like an indie theater. They have a lot more money. They have um the, a lot more of a rigid schedule of things that they have to follow, and a lot more people working. And it can be a little bit of a hectic thing at the beginning, but overall, like I learned a lot about how to navigate that type of professional tier of a theater company. I got to be their spokesperson for A Few Good Men, so I got interviewed by multiple people for the show. And because I was the first ever actor in a wheelchair they've ever hired. So that was a new thing for them too. And me being one of the only people in the country who graduated from a theater program in a wheelchair, it's really a lot of new territory for a lot of people because I come into audition for a theater company and they don't realize that I actually do have a lot of training, and then they're like, "Oh shit," and then they have to like think about how to like navigate that, right? And it can be really a new thing for them, but Drayden, it was quite the thing that I learned from them, and it was a lot of fun. And I got to meet a lot of people. And it was my last show before COVID happened. And then doing theater during the pandemic also, I learned a lot too from that because that was a whole different world of things that I was trying to do. And it ended up being a really valuable thing for me, especially doing rough and learning about how to navigate live theater within a pandemic. It was a lot to learn and navigate, and having to do rapid testing every day when we would go in, and they had like a COVID ranger or whatever that would help out with the COVID protocols and whatnot. and it was really a different thing that I had to navigate. But all of it, all of it aside, I felt like I learned a lot, and I've grown a lot as an actor. I think from when I graduated to now, and being a part of so many different things, I don't feel as much imposter syndrome now as I did at the beginning. Because when you graduate, you really you enter a world of a very big unknown, and you don't really know where your career can go or will go or whatever, and it may take some people a lot longer than other people to get to that point. And I've seen it with even within our program in other years of people that have done very well out of the gate, and other people who it took them a little bit longer. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they're not good or that they're not talented, or it's just how it works in their journey of becoming an actor, right? And it's really opened my eyes to the fact that it does not really matter how talented you are, it's just the right time for you.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful to have that right out of the gate. But then but in on the flip side of it, it really made me much more aware of the fact that when I did have a lull in my career, it did affect me more than other people, I think, because of the fact that it was go, go, go for me. And then not having that,
Yep.
I realized that I had a lot of work to do on myself and things that I had to work on to get to the next chapter of my life.
That is actually one of my personal New Year's resolutions or goals or aims is to the in between moments, the in between gigs or contracts or work, to like relax, take your R&R, like relax and relaxation or rest and relaxation rather. Clearly I've been having too much of it. No. But no, and that is so true of like, because part of our practice, I think, as practitioners is you forget that like you got to pour some love into your like own physical, mental, emotional self in order to keep propelling to give your best self in all of these projects. So the in between moments, the transition moments, instead of, feeling guilty or feeling down or feeling anxious, like what can you be doing to make yourself better, or, more ready for the next thing, right? Whether that be like
Yeah.
picking up physical fitness again, or like reading plays, reading, theories, watching the beautiful thing I always say is, watching in excess might be a little bit much, but watching a Netflix series is kind of like good homework for us. Like that's the one thing about our career that's like, okay, like keeping up with shows is good. It's good for us. But I think you're so right. And I think a lot of people feel that as well. The in between moments and the lulls, like, oh, people can dip quite low, and especially during the pandemic, like that's triple fold right now, right? And I think it's just like a constant reminder to ourselves and each other that like you got this, you just keep doing what you're doing. And like you said, like a lot of the times it's a numbers game, a lot of the times it's you're not the look, you're not the age, and it's nothing to do with you. And imposter syndrome is so real. And even coming back into projects out of a hiatus, such as the pandemic or for whatever reason, I experienced that myself. Like, it's just, you don't, you think you're in the wrong place, wrong time, when it's, you got to kind of shake your head out and be like, no, no, no. Like, you're here, you got the job, chill out. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think that unfortunately, we come from a theater program, and a lot of theater programs, they don't teach you how to properly do a lot of R&R. It's a lot of like go, 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 no matter if you're burnt out or this or that. And having to be fake and pretend that you're okay when you're not. And I think that something that I've learned is that you don't need to do that, especially right now during a pandemic. I think that mental health and physical health is as important as ever before.
Oh, yeah.
And you need to take care of you, because if you don't take care of you, you're not going to do your best work.
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
and you got to really work on that, and help yourself with that, and give yourself the 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 rest that you need. And it's really unfortunate because as much as actors are very confident people, we're also one of the most insecure people on the planet, unfortunately. And we're very emotional, we're very vulnerable people, and we like to be hard on ourselves a lot when we don't get the job, or when we don't book the job, or when we don't do a good audition. And unfortunately, like, that is life. Like, you're not always going to be on your A game. You're not always going to have an incredible audition,
Mhm.
and it doesn't mean that you're not an artist, or that you're not creative, or that you're not whatever. It just means that, unfortunately, we're in an industry that is very much about who you are, and they judge every ounce of you. And you have to learn to be comfortable with who you are, so that you can take the rejection and move on. Because, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot more rejection than not, when
Yeah.
you're working in, like, in the industry that we're working in, especially when you get to the big leagues and you're starting to go up against a lot of really big name people. There's going to be a lot more rejection than people think. and
Totally.
and a lot of actors that are really big now, if you look at the story of how they got there, man, like, Matt LeBlanc in Friends, who played Joey, when he auditioned for the role, he had $24 in his pocket. He had no money. He was literally on the brink of, like, leaving New York or leaving LA or whatever, to just get a job somewhere, because he was like, acting was not working for him. And then he got the role, and then look where they are now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you never know
Mhm.
how long it may take, and you will be poor for a little bit, and then eventually you will start making money. But we gotta focus on who we are, and
Absolutely.
not take everything to heart, because a lot of the time it has nothing to do with your talent. Because
Yep.
the amount of really talented actors in Toronto that have not had their big break yet, it's really, you know
Mhm.
it's a big thing, and you have to really work on that, as a human being.
Yeah, I always say you are human first before you are the artist. And that's something I've always said, like even throughout theater training and stuff too. And it wasn't until I graduated that I fully kind of embraced what that meant, because like you're saying, like the realization of like, oh damn, like I do need to just check in with me. Like I feel off and I'm about to do a very emotionally vulnerable scene and I need to make sure that like I'm okay, or like why am I feeling off, or investigating that. And I'm like, oh, right, like that's a human emotion. I am a human before I have to play the human who has emotions. But that having that ringing in the back of my mind throughout theater training, I think definitely helped like catapult into this abyss of a world, which, you're out of the cute little, I wasn't cute little, but 4 years when you're acting with the same folks. And our program, we were kind of like a giant family, like over the 4 years that you were kind of integrated with all of the years.
Yeah.
So it became like a family setting. It became supportive. You're kind of doing this creative journey with people that you trust and love around you. And then when you go into the real world, that's maybe not the case, or it's not the case as often, and you are on your own. And it's like, well, holy damn, like I need to figure out Jill before I can figure out anything that Jill is supposed to play. So that was a huge thing. And then also just remembering that this is a job. That's been a new thing for me too, of like, this is a job. So if I'm doing a self tape or I'm doing an audition, if I feel great about the work that I'm doing, then I put the work in. Then like and if I don't get it, that's fine. My job was, so it's kind of taking the classic thing of like the auditioning is the work and the booking is the job, which I kind of disagree with, but in a way it kind of does make sense to me, because it's like, as long as you're coming into work every day and doing the tasks that you as the employee are supposed to do, right? Like you're putting forth whatever you can, everything else is out of your hands. So if you don't book it, it's not your fault. It's not, the world isn't crumbling down. The next job, like, yeah. So it's weird. It's like, it was a tiny shift, but it's like, it is the job. It's the career we've chosen.
Yeah.
And it's hard when a lot of us have done this since we were small children and did make the decision to go into arts as our career, right? Some folks go into sciences and do arts on the side, which is phenomenal as well. But when you have this goal, this ambition to be an actor, an artist, just making sure you pair that with, well, realistically, you are choosing to do this as your job. So you kind of, need to treat it that way and take the head out of the clouds sometimes,
Yeah. And then on top of that too, like, yeah, auditioning is part of the job. If you don't book it, then at least you did a good audition. And, something that people have to get into their head is if you do a bad audition, your agent will tell you.
Yeah.
Because
right.
you are representing them.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look back like bad either. And that is a big thing that people have to get into their head, is that if you submit an audition and you do have an agent and they don't tell you anything, it means that it was a good audition. Leave it alone. You did fine. Move on with your life, right? And if they give you a good feedback, even better. Like you did a great audition. Like, great. Now I have the verbal contract that I did well.
Yes.
But yeah, and that is another thing too. It is a job. So what I tell people all the time is, give yourself boundaries. Like, you don't need to always be on all the time. Like, people clock out of their 9 to 5 job at 5 o'clock, and then they go home and they're done, and they're not thinking about acting, or they're not thinking about their job. I mean, but when it comes to acting, give yourself a time of the night where you turn off your phone, turn off your email,
take a bubble bath.
Yeah, make a boundary with your agent. Like, don't email me after this time unless you have to.
Right.
Like, stuff like that. Like, give yourself the boundaries that you need, because if you don't, you're going to be on your phone all the time, and that's not healthy either.
Yeah.
And waiting for the next audition, and you are waiting for feedback from the casting director, or waiting for a callback, or this or that, or whatever it may be. And it does not work like that. You should not have, even though acting, you're very passionate about it and whatnot, the minute that you turn it into a career, you have to give yourself a boundary, because you cannot be living and breathing the acting world all the time, because you will drive yourself up the wall.
And it's hard. It's hard, like, watching media and turning off the brain of, like, analyzing how actors are saying a certain thing, or like, ooh, what genre is this? And that's a cool adaptation. Like, it's hard to kind of turn that off. And it is true. It's like, you almost have to schedule in self-care things. My partner laughs at me sometimes because I put in my schedule, like, read a chapter of your book amidst all the other, like, administrative things to do. And it's like, I have to do that because in my mind, my, like, planner mind, if I plan these, like, break moments for me, I won't go wily, and it's healthy. It's a healthy balance for sure. This is so great, George. I just feel like this is, yes, like, just airing this stuff out, being so realistic. It is so true. Mental health comes first, regardless of who you are, where you are in your journey. Like, you have to be kind to yourself and do whatever it takes to do that. Because, like you said, like, then everything else will just spiral if you aren't focused on you first. Okay, so I'm gonna focus back on you on another pathway that you've paved, and you've mentioned this quite some times, and we are gonna crack it open and dive in. So, speaking of unionization, you said you are now a member of Equity and ACTRA, and recently you've landed a position on the ACTRA Toronto Council while also serving on the ACTRA National. So, tell us about this aspect of your career pathway.
Yeah. So back in October of 2019, I was told by many people that I should run for ACTRA Council, and And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, but I know that I won't get elected at that time because not a lot of people knew of me at that time. I ran for the election. I did not get elected. And then I was an alternate, meaning that whenever somebody could not make it to the meeting, I would be their alternate for council. And I got to learn a lot about the governing of ACTRA and learning about what they do when it comes to the membership. And it was really a really cool experience to be a part of that. And then basically what happened was in 2021, this past year, because we're now in 2022. Oh my god. Anyway,
time, yeah.
I'm like, wait, what year are we in? Anyway, I was told I should run again because it's a 2-year term. And I'm like, okay, I'll run this time around and I'll properly do it. So I had a video. I made it to every election meeting or whatever where membership people could come in and ask a question about a problem or whatever, and what you would do as an elected council member and whatnot. And I did it, and then I got elected, and I was over the moon happy that I was one of the 24 people elected for a council for Toronto. And then, so now I was a part of that. It was great. And then the last meeting that we had back in right before the new year, I think. Yeah. We had no, it was at the beginning of January. My God. Anyway.
Again, what is time? Time is not a thing anymore.
Right. We had a vote on the council of who they wanted to elect for ACTRA National, and those people would be it would be 5 people from the council board who would be representing ACTRA Toronto, which technically ACTRA Toronto is all of Ontario except for Ottawa.
Okay.
Because ACTRA has an office in Ottawa, like it's a separate branch, but ACTRA Toronto is all of Ontario. I don't know why they named it Toronto, but whatever. Anyway, but I would be representing ACTRA Toronto as one of the 9 branches for ACTRA National. And we would meet up and online, and we would talk about some of the problems the industry and the union is facing on a nationwide scope. And they voted me in, and I got to be, now I'm part of ACTRA National on top of ACTRA Toronto. So now I'm serving on both. And now I'm part of the governing. Like I help with negotiating. I help with lobbying with different government officials. I'm part of speaking out against different things that I've heard from people and talking about it on council. I'm really a part of a lot, and it's a lot of responsibility. But I get to be a part of that, and hopefully a part of the change that we need in the union. And yeah.
So are there any specific goals for because you'll be serving the 2022-2024 is your term, right? Yeah. So are there any like goals that you'd want to accomplish or like make sure that you ignite while you're on the council for those years?
Yeah, there are a couple things that I want to work on. Again, it's all depends on if we can actually have it happen, because I'm one of 24 people and an entire membership. But some things that I want to change is, the language and the culture around disability and actors with disabilities, because I think that there's still a very negative culture around that. And my argument against that is, disability does not discriminate, and it goes against every minority group on the planet. And unfortunately, every human being on the planet will be affected by disability at some point in their life. It could be them, it could be their loved one, it could be anything. Even like becoming older and
Yeah.
elderly, you may need a wheelchair or a walker, right? And accessibility goes much farther than what people think. And I think that there needs to be more of a culture shift in language. And I've been told before, like when I'm working on set before, where people have referred to me as go and talk to the actor in the wheelchair, even though I have a name. And it's just stuff like that, because it's not like you would go and be like, go and talk to the black actor. So why do they think it's okay to refer to me as the actor in the wheelchair and not my name when you do have my name on the call sheet? So it's really stuff like that that I want to change. I want to change. Um, I just want to help with. A part of some of the stuff I want to do is helping with maybe um, more of a combining equity and ACTRA to be working more when it comes to digital theater, because I think that there's still a lot of things to iron out. A lot of people at equity don't know how to go go with ACTRA when it comes to an IPA agreement when they are doing a digital theater gig, because the minute that you do anything digital, it would be under the ACTRA contract.
Right.
And just kind of clarifying that maybe a little more with people. I want to help out with young actors and education more when it comes to like um, maybe helping out with like when they graduate and the resources that they can have with the union. I know that we do learn a little bit in our fourth year, but it's still like there needs to be a lot more talk
Mhm.
about that. The different things that they have, like the Haven helpline, different things to if you need to, even if you're on a non-union gig, you can still contact ACTRA if you are having like a human rights problem or sexual assault or anything like that. Just like telling people that there is things that are out there, even if you're non-union, you can still contact the union and be like, "Hey, is this okay?"
Yeah.
And it can help you out with that. And I think that there's still a lot with that, and maybe education within the membership, um, about different things that they are willing to, like things that they can work on with ACTRA and be more involved and yeah, there's a lot that we need to work on. And also just talking about the respect for the actor and how different branches in the country sometimes offer higher pay scales than others, and there needs to be more respect for actors depending on where you are living and stuff, and offering more money if they want it, and just yeah, stuff like that. There's a lot that I want to work on, but yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that I can make a little bit of change if I can.
I have no doubt in my mind. They are so lucky to have you on Toronto Council and especially the national. And I know I just learned a whole lot about ACTRA that I didn't know. So if anything, yeah, like you said, we did get tidbits of info and definitely brochures and pamphlets that had all of those information or the formative facts you just said. But there is something to having kind of more of like an interactive
Mhm.
experience and having a voice and a voice that you trust and a voice who is the voice of many different spokes of this industry. Um, yeah, I look forward to everything you do for us. Yes, we love George. We love George. I love George, and I know all of our listeners, viewers love George too. Well, this has been, I've said it a bajillion times, but amazing. Just to get in this space with you and put our brains and hearts and passions together and learn about your trajectory of past what you're doing now and what you have upcoming. So before we sort of round out the convo, do you have any specific projects upcoming or on the go? And if so, and if not, regardless, where can we keep up with you on socials?
Yeah, well, the Cell Block Tango Reimagined and the Drayden Online Backstage Pass show will all happen in the new year. So in the upcoming months, it will be airing, which will be a lot of fun. I am auditioning a lot right now, so I don't know where my career may go.
Love it.
But you know, a lot of different theater companies I'm auditioning for now, and you know, with the Omicron variant, it can be a little hard to kind of navigate where they will go. But people can follow me on Instagram, on Twitter. My Instagram handle is George Alevizos _ and then my Twitter handle is the same handle, I believe, actually. So George Alevizos _ and people can find me, follow me if they want, and keep tabs on me on everything that I'm going to be working on, hopefully.
And it all sounds super, super exciting. Thank you again so much, George. You've nourished me, and I know you've nourished so many minds that are going to tune into this episode. I'm so glad we were able to catch up. And again, thank you for holding a glowing torch for us in this industry, especially Canadian industry, and especially Canadian industry during the pandemic. It's voices like yours that we need filling our spaces and filling our minds. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone tuning in to today's episode. We'll make sure that we post all of what George has said will be upcoming and his handles down below. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe this video, and stay safe. Stay motivated, however you so choose, and stay kind to yourself. Cheers, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.